Hello everyone, merhaba. I am going to do a different type of video this time. I'm going to talk about a museum, the only one which was in London, at least the last one there was in London, and also closed down last year in 2019. I managed to visit this motorcycle back in 2018 in October, so a year prior it's closing down, because it closed down in October 2019. So I'm going to give my experience and a little bit of information about the collection it held there. It had a really amazing collection of Triumph motorcycles. It was very impressive. I had never been to a motorcycle museum before. It was my first time there, so I was very impressed and it was amazing. There were around 170 bikes, I think over 170 bikes. There was a building dedicated totally for Triumphs and another one which had mixed type of motorcycles, from BSAs to Nortons to Vincent to HRD. So they had like two buildings. The first one had a mix of motorcycles and the second one was totally for Triumphs, which was awesome. Both of them were awesome. But yeah, I was living in London in 2018. I lived there for only 2 months and I was searching like motorcycling stuff, places where I could visit and go. In fact, I went to the bike shed, I went to the Ace Cafe and had a great time there. And I went to the Much Less clothing shop in central London, for example. And another place which I really wanted to visit was a motorcycle museum, and I found this, the London Motorcycle Museum, and visited there with my parents and my sister and her husband, basically. So it was a great experience because my dad is also a big motorcycle enthusiast, especially on classic motorcycles. On 21st September 2019, it was Independence Day here in Malta. The London Motorcycle Museum published a Facebook post that they were basically going to close down, announced that they will close its doors for good on Monday 7th October 2019. They thanked everyone, obviously, the volunteers and all those who visited the museum throughout the years and those who donated to the museum, because they also had a scheme. One could donate for the museum to help the museum with financial affairs. One could also adopt a bike, so one could also donate for a specific motorcycle to be restored or maintained. I think it was a great initiative, but apparently it didn't work so well because the museum still faced financial problems. They had also announced that part of the collection was going to be sold in Bonham Stafford's auction on the 19th of October 2019. And basically on the last day, on October 7th, they basically wrote another Facebook post and stated, "Our last day is over and we are now closed." That was a very sad moment to hear, not only because I had visited the museum and saw the potential it had, but was sad to even see the last motorcycle museum in London, one of the greatest cities in Europe and one which is a symbol of industrialization. So to fade away. Basically, it is almost impossible for the collection to be together again. There were a lot of bikes, and now they have been sold, and maybe they have still some a bit of memorabilia and accessories or some bikes to sell, but most of them apparently they have already sold them to private collectors or maybe other motorcycle museums. And yeah, it is very sad because one couldn't like enjoy all of those bikes again in one place in London. I had also commented on that post actually, and expressed that I was sorry for this to happen, and I thanked them for keeping up the museum at least for 20 years that it had been open. The museum apparently was formed in 1999 or so it had been around 20 years exactly when it closed down its doors again. The museum had its foundations by a person called William Crosby. He had a motorcycle shop. He was an importer apparently of marks like Mobilette and NSU and Excelsior. This Bill Crosby apparently had a number of bikes and collected a number of bikes throughout the years, and also showcased them along with cars, classic cars apparently, in other places, but then could not hold on to that, and basically the bikes were scattered to friends' houses, etc. This information is all on the London Motorcycle Museum website, which is still up till this day on the internet. So you can go there and see this historical information basically. Then ultimately in around 1997 he heard about an old farm in Greenford, and he got it from Ealing Borough Council, but which ultimately couldn't keep it no more now in 2019 because the bills were apparently too high to keep up then the museum as well. So to maintain the museum and to pay the bills for the site, it was too much for the museum. There were very interesting bikes there. Some bikes, many bikes actually, which I had never even seen present with my eyes. Like I saw them only on pictures on the internet when doing some research as an enthusiast. So like there were a variety of models from Raj to Zenith to Panther to Douglas to HRD, Vincent, much less, and others. And as I stated, there was a whole hall dedicated for Triumphs only. So that was a super place to visit. And again, I am very sorry that it had closed down. I am going to mention two Triumphs in that collection which really left an impact, like not left an impact, but I mean that I really appreciated, and I don't know what happened to them now. The first motorcycle that I am going to mention is a Triumph TS81 prototype. This was the only bike ever made. It is from 1981. It was a prototype. It had no mileage. Basically, this was never ridden, apparently. And thanks for the great explanation given by those who were present. There were two guys present in that museum when we went there, two young guys, and he basically told us that this was the only one made and one of the last, because in 1981 they couldn't really keep up with the Japanese bikes. They had great challenges. The Triumph Mark had great challenges before being sold and got into a new management, basically, like it is today. Today it is a great brand again, but back in that time, in 1981, the brand was facing a very challenging time, due to competition. This one had an 8-valve parallel twin engine. It is a great looking bike, and for my taste it's a touring bike. I'm going to put some photos for you on the video as well for you to see it. It is maybe strange looking, but it is a typical early 80s type of bike. It pleasures my tastes. The other motorcycle was a Triumph TRW. I have one of those, but this one was special. This one was the prototype as well. So it was from 1947, if I'm not mistaken, because they were issued for production in 48. That model was designed during the war, but was not issued during the war because the factory was bombed, and they also were not able to develop it to issue it in time for war. So it was issued after the war, but the basic design was of the war period. This TRW had magnesium crankcases. The other ones, like the one I have aluminum ones, and the block is iron. They also had a beautifully restored engine of a TRW and put on a crate. I think it was restored. I am not exactly sure, but I think it was restored as if it was new. I don't think it was just new and put there on a crate, but I'm not sure about that, so don't take me seriously on this one. They had some other very interesting racing bikes and competition bikes, basically like a Triumph Yellow Peril 650 of 1960, which did the quarter of a mile in 13.39 seconds, which is amazing for at that time. There were both military motorcycles as well, and civilian, as well as police department motorcycles. There was even a motorcycle which was used to travel around the world with it, I think, but I don't know exactly if I have a photo of that one. I will put a photo of this bike if I found one. I'm not exactly sure if I have a photo of that bike. I really had a great time in that museum, and I will cherish forever those memories and great time I had with my family. I really would like to thank those people that were there when we visited that museum. We went there on the 13th of October 2018. There were two guys and they were really friendly and helpful, and I would like to really thank them for being there and all the volunteers and for keeping up the museum, even though I am not from Britain, but having a history which is very much tied to the British. We also have a lot of British bikes here. Personally, I love British bikes, and we have a number of them in our small collection. So I really appreciate the effort for keeping up that museum. Ultimately, I would like to return to the UK to visit other motorcycle museums, like the National Motorcycle Museum, as well as the David Silver Museum of motorcycles, I think mostly Honda or entirely Honda, and maybe even attend other events in the UK, motorcycle events. I am really looking forward, maybe in the future after this coronavirus thing fades away, hopefully soon. Please comment and state if your experiences, if you ever if you had visited this museum before it closed down, unfortunately, or recommend me other collections to visit in the future, or maybe places to go and go for a ride with a motorcycle in the UK. Please subscribe to my channel, and you can also follow me on Instagram. Thank you and take care. Saha.